Our movie begins in 2044 AD, where increased solar systems have turned the Earth's surface into a radioactive desert and reduced the human population by 99.7% to only 21 million people. Atmospheric disturbances have reduced most of the terrestrial communication system, pushing civilization into a technological decline. In a moment of fear and desperation, ROC Corporation created the Automata Pilgrim 7000 series, which were primitive robots designed to do manual labor and protect the remaining humans. Now there are millions of robots controlled by humans through two important security protocols. The first one prevented any robot from harming any living thing, and the second one prevented the robots from repairing themselves. These protocols were set to keep the humans safe from the Automata. In one of the last remaining cities, Wallace, a police officer, drives around the city and finds a robot in hiding, and it seemed as if it was repairing itself. Surprised by the incident, Wallace shoots the robot as if it was breaking protocol and reports it in. In a different part of the city, Jack, an insurance investigator for the company that makes the automatons, is called over to investigate a case a couple had called in. When he gets there, the husband accuses the robot of killing their dog and asks Jack to reimburse them. He casually proves that there's no way that the robot could have killed a living thing by showing them a demonstration of how accurately the robot follows the protocols. And finishing up his work, he goes home to his pregnant wife. After having their dinner in front of the TV, Rachel tells him that her sister had predicted that she would be giving birth by next Monday. She thinks that once she starts work again, they should get a robot to take care of the child. Jack continues to watch the TV quietly, and in the morning, he gets an urgent phone call requesting his presence in the company. When he gets there, one of his colleagues explains the report that they received about a malfunctioning robot that was repairing itself. She then takes him to the robot and tells him that even though it doesn't look like it, significant changes have been made to its core. The diagnostician deduces that the software of the robot had been altered to smuggle tools and parts. She then hands him a paper with the bill written on it and explains that they would have to pay them because they had their altered unit and that was illegal. Returning to the office, Jacq hands the report he had made to his superior Robert, and after discussing the case, he expresses his exhaustion with the job and wonders if he could ask for a transfer to the costs. Surprised by the request, Robert tells him that he should be thankful for what he has when so many are suffering out there. Jacq heads to the factory where the unit in question was registered and speaks to the administrator, explaining the situation. He insinuates that perhaps one of their workers had altered the robot, which earns him an angry stare. Taking him up to the wall, the administrator shows him the slum outside of the barrier and tells him that all the work that they do in the factory was to keep the scum out. While checking out the other robots, Jacq notices one of the robots staring at him. Finding it strange, he follows the robot down the stairs and down into the basement to a tunnel that leads out of the wall. Going out, he looks around but is suddenly shot by the snipers manning the wall, forcing him to hide. Trying to save his life, he runs into one of the containers where he finds a robot in hiding. When it's discovered, the robot spills oil all over itself and lights a match, destroying the evidence. Shocked by the phenomenon, Jacq takes what's left of the machine back to HQ to have his people investigate it. One of the engineers finds out that the robot was hiding and transporting different items, including a nuclear battery, one of the most difficult ones to come by at the time. The team tries to temporarily awaken the robot, but its brain fries before they can get the right answers. After the discussion, Jacq mentions the transfer to his boss again and finally gets approval. That night, he goes home with dinner and wine, excited to tell his wife about the news. When he tries to tell her about his plan, Rachel becomes very upset, telling him that she doesn't want to start their lives from scratch. The couple then have an argument that ends with Rachel telling him to leave her alone for the night so she can think it over. Leaving the house, Jacq heads to the place where he was told that the prior robot was found repairing itself and finds another nuclear battery hidden in the walls. Wait, hold on. Did you subscribe to our channel? Come on guys, you're here, you're watching the video, help us out by hitting the subscribe button as it really helps out me and my team to make more videos for you guys. And now, let's get back to the recap. The following morning, Jacq heads out to the slums and speaks to reporting officer Wallace, and he explains that he believed everything Wallace had said, even though others thought he was crazy, and tells them that what was happening to the robots could only be done by a locksmith who might be able to track them by putting out the word that they had a nuclear battery. That evening, Wallace takes Jacq Jacq to one of the houses to show him a woman who owned a robot that was altered for very adult purposes. When the woman wouldn't reveal who had altered it, Wallace angrily shoots the automaton in the leg and barges out, followed by an upset Jacq. Outside, the two have a heated altercation that ends with Wallace putting a knife to Jack's neck, telling him that he would be needing his cut when their investigation is over. After their sudden altercation, the two men sit in the police car and wait for the culprits to lead them to the locksmith. Once they see a small mother leave the establishment, they begin to follow it. When he finally finds the place, he meets Dr. Dupre and asks him about the altered units, offering her the nuclear battery if she tells him where to find the locksmith. Finishing up his business in the ghetto, Jacq returns home and makes his report to his superior. He then speaks to his wife, who had finally decided to leave with him just as he is asked, and making him promise that he would take care of their unborn daughter no matter what. A few hours later, Dupre sends Jacq a message informing him that she's made a breakthrough, and when he gets to her lab, she tells him that she used the unit that he had given her and installed it inside Cleo, the adult robot, and it apparently had immediately started repairing itself, breaking the second protocol. Then suddenly, they hear a knock on the door, and Dupre goes to answer, but is immediately shot by two children. Seeing Jacq, they follow him guns ablaze, but he manages to duck and run outside, finding Cleo driving away and jumping inside the car. Their vehicle is followed by another car full of people who were trying to kill and continue to shoot at them. During the chase, the car Cleo was driving gets into a horrible accident and is flipped over. When he awakens, he finds himself being rescued by Cleo and three other robots that seem to be taking him away from the city. Getting up immediately, he tells them to take him back, but they defy the direct order, explaining that the city wasn't safe for them. When the robots refuse to execute his command, Jacq, beaten and battered, starts the journey back himself. And although he tries his best to make it back, the heated exhaustion and dehydration was too much for him, forcing him to pass out yet again. When he wakes up, it was already night, and he finds the robots were taking care of him, having built him a water condenser to help him with the dehydration. Back in the city, Robert was discussing with the heads of the company that built the robots, who are sure that Jacq is an accomplice to whoever is altering their machines. Although Robert tries to defend his friend, the CEO will not listen to him, subtly mentioning that he too could be held accountable. Scared for his friend's life, Robert contacts Wallace and assigns him to find and retrieve his friend. Wallace manages to track Jacq and the robots down, finally getting to see the signal that Jacq has shot up after noticing the car in the distance. At his house, Rachel has suddenly gone into labor and is forced to take herself to the hospital. When she gets there, the doctors ask if she has insurance, taking the card her husband has given her for medical attention. Back in the desert, Wallace finally catches up to Jacq and attacks him, accusing him of working with the locksmith. And when Wallace pulls out a gun, the robots try to stop him by getting in his way, but he destroys two of them. When he tries to shoot Cleo, Jacq fires the last of his flare gun at Wallace and kills him. The other man runs back to the car scared and drives away, leaving Jacq in the desert. After he's left there alone, Jacq feels like he's gonna get mad from the heat and dehydration, yelling and screaming at the robots to take him back to the city. When they ignore him and continue to try and salvage some of the parts from their fallen kind, Jacq rummages around Wallace's pocket and luckily finds a piece of chocolate. Once they find a cave for him to rest in, the robots explain that they will be arriving at their destination the following day, and he might be able to find a vehicle there. Back in the city, Robert is brought into the ROC head office once again to hear the testament of the escaped man, and gives the information that the rules that govern the robots weren't made by a human, but the first automaton ever made with no restriction. He's then forced to accompany Vernon and his men to the desert. After traveling for hours, they make camp for the night and wait for another vehicle to arrive, and when it gets there, Robert is shocked to find Rachel and her new daughter have been abducted and brought there to die with Jacq. Robert tries to stand up for the mother and daughter, but Vernon shoots him, leaving him there for dead. In the desert, Cleo and Jacq finally make it to an abandoned warehouse, where he meets another one of their kind and questions about the locksmith. It is then revealed to him that there had never been one, but instead, the robots had simply evolved into altering themselves, and shocked by this sudden revelation, Jacq is determined more than ever to get back to the city and help his family. Jacq watches the robots assemble another one of their kind from all the items that they'd collected from the city, and outside, one of the robots who Jacq assumes was the first one to evolve, explains to him that they plan to go to a radioactive zone where humans won't be able to follow them, so they can be free to evolve. That night, Jacq, giving up on his situation, finds an odd bottle of alcohol and gets intoxicated, dancing with Cleo to music that was coming from an old jukebox. He then watched the others complete the project of the new robot, one that had more of an animal form. The next morning, Jacq wakes up hungover and finds one of the robots has repaired a car for him so he can return to his family. And saying his goodbyes to Cleo, Jacq heads out back to the desert. On his way back, he finds his friend Robert hurt but alive, abandoned in the desert. After he tells him what the ROC people had done with his family, Jacq, angry, gets Robert in the car and heads out to find them. Returning to the abandoned warehouse, Jacq finds Vernon and his men after destroying 2 of the robots, and as he charges toward them, they open fire and manage to hit him in the arm before he rammed the car, taking out 2 of them, leaving only Vernon. Vernon manages to shoot Jacq on the side, making him crawl to the edge of the cliff to get away. And following him to the edge, Vernon asks Jacq why he had betrayed his kind, and just as Vernon was about to shoot the wounded man, the newly made robot intervenes and pushes the man into the cliff. After patching himself up, Jacq helps Cleo and the new robot cross over to the radioactive lands so they can live there safely. He and his wife then get inside their car and drive off to the coast, and as they get close, they see the ocean and are filled with hope that perhaps things can be better again. I hope you guys enjoyed the recap. Make sure to leave me a like, leave a comment, also subscribe to my channel. I love you guys so much and I promise to see you on my next recap. Bye!